Look up from your telescope, take me on this journey home. I don't wanna wait no more.
What's good, y'all? It's your sis Erica Payne back again with another amazing All American video. And in this video, we are breaking down season 2, episode 2. Let's get into it. Y'all, episode 2 was a lot. Like, a lot. Oh, my dear soul and spirit. All right, I'm gonna break it down by character. Honestly, I'm not gonna go in order of like how things happen, just because I think it's really important for specific characters to just talk about their journey in this episode in its totality together. So I want to start with Layla. In this episode, we really start to see her downward spiral progress really quickly. And I just want to take a second to really just say shout out to All American. I think that they did a really great job of the way that they handled Layla spiraling. They put a lot of nuance and complexity into her really battling with her depression, really confronting and in situations running from her loneliness, the way that they allowed for her life events. So Spencer confiding in Olivia, and then her having to find out from Olivia that Spencer's considering moving back to Crenshaw. The idea of Spencer leaving Beverly Hills and going back to Crenshaw. The pressure that she's feeling from Stuco and the events that they have going on, and the bitchiness that is coming from her peers. Like, all of the things that are a part of Layla's regular life really start to become driving forces to push her further into her depression, push her further into her isolation, push her further into like going back and forth with this switch. Because it really feels like something is off with it. Not that it's wrong by any means, but something is up with it. And as you progress throughout the episode, I really felt like they handled the storyline of this depression that is manifesting with Layla so well, because it's not just one thing. They did not like make it, okay, she's sad because of this, or she's mad because of this. There's underlying thing, there's a foundational thing, there could be a genetic thing, and then all of her life events and how she has kind of curated her life to live this like perfect situation and be the perfect girl. Those same things become the triggers that exasperate the problems for her. So again, it's not just one thing, and I feel like this was just so very true to life in how this manifests in regular life for people. It's seldom just one thing. When someone is spiraling in depression or in isolation or just trapped within their negative thoughts, it's a multitude of things, and then it's also their perception of that thing kind of force you into a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you also shift into a negative mindset that makes you view a lot of things in a way that's not necessarily going to help pull you out of it, but it's really just going to pull you deeper into it. And I felt like we saw that happen on screen with Layla as she navigated the episode all the way up until the end, where she can't keep up the lie anymore, and she tells Spencer, haphazardly, like, yeah, my dad's in Singapore, Japan, I can't really keep up, whatever, when she's trying to distract him or distract herself from what's actually happening by like leaning into like sex and like them just like not talking anymore, because he's sitting there talking about his dad and how he brought Darnell here, and she's sitting there worrying about her loneliness and how isolated she feels, and she's not able to really articulate how she feels. The result of that is her to do this dismissive and distractive behavior, and I just felt like it just tracked so beautifully well. Like, watching it play out in this one episode just really allowed you to see so many of the different stages of depression, so many of the different levels, and how the various life events can really contribute to it getting worse or it getting better. And unfortunately, she just happened to be in a space where she cannot articulate what's actually going on. So even though Olivia is there and Olivia knows that something is up and she's been trying to get her to say something, she can't articulate it. And then all of these other things that are popping up, the pressure from school, the pressure in their relationship with Spencer, and she probably feels pressure to show up for Spencer, but then also feels alienated in the moment that Olivia knows this thing that she doesn't know, which also it like pings back to some previous feelings from before. So all of these things are just really creating a perfect storm for her depression to progress. And like I said, I think that they just did it really beautifully, and I wanted to take a second to say that. We get moments in this episode where we see Layla, like at the top of the episode, she's in the bathtub and we think like, is she trying to kill herself? off, and it's like, no, she's just taking a beat. Okay, cool. And then from there, she shows up at school and she acts like everything is completely fine and she's cool. She even goes as far as to say to Olivia, like, you're trying to save everyone. Like, you're looking at Jordan and you're like, oh, you're trying to save him. You think he's crying out for help. You think that I'm crying out for help. And you need to just let it go. And it's just so funny because it's like, girl, y'all both are crying out for help. And Olivia's 100% right. Now that, like, a quick pop out moment, y'all, now that I go back and watch this, even in this moment, it felt very altruistic that Olivia was like checking in on everybody and so keen on what everybody else has going on. But now that we've seen season 3, it's like, yo, I'm watching it also with another thing in my mind of like, okay, but then how do you feel, Olivia? What do you got going on? How is Layla dismissing what's really going on and not sharing with you as your BFF? How does that make you feel? How does watching Jordan drink in the hangout right now, run through chicks, a new chick every single day, how does that make you feel? Finding your mom crying on the ground because your dad cheated on her, how does that make you feel? Find out that Spencer might actually be moving back to Crenshaw, how does that make you feel? Like, that's the one thing that now that I'm going back and watching, I have the perspective of season 3. I'm like, yo, what about you, girl? Because you're worried about how everybody else feels, but we don't see not one moment where you are actually processing any of your feelings around it, which also just starts to lay the subtle groundwork for what we see happen in season 3. Y'all, they don't miss. Well, I'm gonna get into we're gonna revisit season 3, but seasons 1 and 2 of All American, kudos, it's freaking amazing, and I cannot, it's chef's kiss. Definitely this episode, chef's kiss. Also, we don't necessarily get to see because she brushes it off, but at the top of the episode, Olivia tells Spencer that Chris broke up with her. Girl, how do you feel about that? Like, we literally don't get to see Olivia process a damn thing in this episode, and it is such a great setup for what we see play out further on down the line. Also, in this episode, it's a very strong character development episode for Coop. Patience pushes her to, you know, be open with her mom, invite her over, and like let them live a normal coupledom life. And Coop is really concerned with like throwing her relationship in her mom's face because she don't think that she's ready to be able to handle it. And ultimately, it creates a conversation around Coop has to be able to be herself, be in this relationship, and not necessarily hiding in plain sight. And I love how they use the music and allow Coop to use the music to be able to express herself to her mom, and they get to a common ground where her mom agrees that she's going to work harder and do better with getting adjusted to her daughter's lifestyle that she's completely not adjusted to. And I thought that it was beautiful that they allowed Coop to use music just to show that there's so many ways that you can communicate with people, right? Like, you can communicate straight up, this is how I feel, this is what I, but then also when you can't find the words, when you can't find the strength, when you are, you know, nervous, sometimes battling a little bit of shame, and you can't necessarily say something straight out, there are other ways to communicate how you feel. And in this case, Coop used her music. I think it would have been great if we would have seen, or if we see moving forward, maybe in season 4, if we see Olivia draw how she feels more. Like, I know I talk a lot about wanting people in this show to communicate, but sometimes you really just can't. You can't find the words, you can't find the strength, you can't find the power that you need to have the words come out of your mouth. But let's get the words to come out somewhere else. Come out in your art, come out in you performing, come out in your actions. But it just has to come out of you, because we see over and over and over again, when you keep your feelings and you keep your thoughts and you keep everything that makes you you to you, and you're not able to express that, you're not able to show up in the world that you want to, it just creates a toxic place for yourself internally, and then you start to self-destruct. And ultimately, I feel like that's something that we see with numerous characters within this series when they are not communicating, which I think is also why it's so powerful that when we see Spencer being so open, so vulnerable, and so ready to articulate, because while, you know, it's great and expressing yourself will definitely help you, but even that, like, part of it is like managing the communications in that, but you get to see the full healing journey that comes when you are able to just let it out. I definitely want to see more people like letting it out. I'm so glad that Coop got to let it out in this episode in the way that she did. I'm looking forward to seeing Olivia let things out. Layla needs to let things out. A big thing for her in this episode is like holding all of these feelings with herself and creating a situation within her mind to allow herself to believe that she's alone, even though she's not alone, which just makes things worse. Y'all, talk to somebody, show somebody, sing to somebody, draw to somebody, do something. If you need to be heard, you want to be heard, you feel like you're not being heard, find a way to let it out. All right, I didn't mean to go to that big old thing, but that was on my spirit to say, so I said it. What was interesting to me, specifically with Jordan, like, we know that he's struggling with the separation, but he makes a comment to Olivia Olivia, like, we have free reign, have some fun. And for me, now going back and rewatching it, I feel like this was mad insensitive. Like, I know that you're processing your pain, but you're running around here drinking and smashing everything with a vagina. And you tell your sister that she needs to lighten up and have some fun. Mind you, she's already overdosed and her life was threatened by way of pills. And you're not even really registering what you're saying to someone when you're telling her to like be like you and have some fun and loosen up and all this other kind of stuff. Like, and it's not that I was expecting Jordan to actually think that way, because history has shown that he doesn't necessarily consider Olivia a lot. A lot of them don't. But in rewatching it, it just pissed me off even more. And I'm just sitting here wondering, like, when is Simone coming? Because I can't with this Jordan. This Jordan is trash. And I know that you feel away, sir. I know that you sad. Mommy and daddy broke up. Yes, but you are still very, very blessed, very, very privileged, and I cannot. You got to be able to feel how you feel, but I can't with his emotional terrorism. I'm just gonna say it. I can't. And I have a problem with the way that Cam seeded the thought that Darnell was replacing Spencer. He already felt that. We already thought that. You did not have to say it, sir. Golly, just go ahead and pour salt in the wound. Spencer in this episode is really grappling with the fact that Corey brought Darnell out here, and then to add insult to injury, he finds out that Corey was living with Darnell and Darnell's mom for 7 years. So of the 8 years that he was gone and not taking care of his kids, he spent 7 taking care of someone else's. And at this point, you might as well go ahead and put your hands up, because Spencer should have swung on him. I'm gonna be honest with you. Violence doesn't necessarily solve anything, but it definitely would make Spencer feel good to rock his father's jaw real quick, because what in the insensitive, ridiculous, utterly stupid, what were you thinking, Corey? What, like... I don't even care what you was thinking. Shut up. I don't care. I really don't even care. Go sit your ass down in the corner, because I can't. When this happened, y'all, I remember the first time watching this, I really feel like I stood up and walked up on the TV screen as if it was Corey, like it was about, like I was about to do something, because I was just so enraged. Like, I gotta fight for Spencer, because this ain't cool. This was one of the most insensitive things, utterly dismissive and disrespect. Like, bro, I don't even know how they were able to bring Corey back from this, but this was a moment for me, and I was just like, yeah, we're done with you. When Corey comes to kind of like try to hash things out and talk it out, Spencer says, you didn't miss us because you replaced us. When I tell you, that hit me in the heart, like I had abandoned him. Like, you got this. Spencer, I feel you, bro. It's the dialogue for me. Spencer's dialogue this episode was very, very powerful and poignant. As I mentioned, y'all, it was a lot happening in this episode. I talked a little bit about Jordan by way of what he said to Olivia and what that could possibly mean for Olivia, but I'm gonna give space for Jordan and what he got going on. So he's smashing all these girls. We see Channel, who's actually Chanel in this. We get Grace telling Billy like space isn't gonna fix him and Jordan, so we ultimately get to see, you know, Billy come back to the team. He pulled Jordan up and like have a conversation with him. It was very, very interesting to see the stranger meet Jordan with that energy that he be having for other people when he swung on him. Did y'all see Jordan jump across that damn table? I can't. Jordan needed that, but I don't think that he actually registered what was happening in that moment, but he definitely deserved that punch because he was being an a-hole. And I really want to like empathize with him. Like, I understand it, like all that you've known in reference to your home as being shaken, as being changed, but you do not have to dive deeper into being a douche. And at the end of the day, it's like, honestly, what can we expect from him? Because this is Jordan, but this is just Jordan on 100. So it is what it is. Going back really quick to what I said about Layla, at the very end of the episode, well, second to last scene, we see her in the hotel sitting there and she's like mumbling to herself that she's fine. And even that, like, again, I feel like they handled her storyline and the conversation around depression so beautifully, even in showing the process of her pushing herself to switch in and out of when she's going to allow her to feel her feelings versus when she's going to play, you know, perfect Beverly Hills Barbie. And the very last scene that we see is the scene that I mentioned at the top of this video, was where she's sitting with Spencer and she's really kind of checked out. And honestly, y'all, this is the turning point episode for Layla, where we really get to see her go over the cliff, and it's like, this is now a free fall. All right, y'all, that is my breakdown for episode 2. There was some other stuff that happened. You know, Asher's trying to get the team to focus, JJ is frolicking and perpetuating Jordan's toxicity and ridiculousness, but for the most part, the major things that I felt like we need to talk about, I talked about in this episode. Let me know what you thought about this episode in the comment section down below. If you want to talk about anything that I missed or did not mention, drop it in the comments and I will respond to you. I love you guys so very much. If you're new here, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, because as you can tell, I'm breaking down All American in depth, honey, every single day, and you should really join the tribe by hitting subscribe. If you missed any of my videos, you can check them out right here. I got my All About All American playlist link for you right here, as well as my season 1 playlist for you. Get into it and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.